Good. So, hi, Dana.
Hi, Laura.
This is very good to have you again after our first series of conversation.
Yeah, it's wonderful to be together and have another chance to talk with you.
Very nice. I think that what we can do this time for everybody to try to learn a little more about the principles of the quantum leader quotient, we can start a little to discuss about the previous conversations. And I think that this has impacted many people. There are many people that call me also to talk about it. How did you feel about the first part?
Our first conversation?
Yes. How do you feel about the first conversations?
I was very happy with it. And it was interesting to do it with you.
Yes, I think that what was very good is for us to put into perspective what is happening right now and how this comes together with all of this philosophy, this new management philosophy, Dana? I think that there are lots of people that are looking and searching for something that they can grab and understand what is the new normal. What is the new way of working in the future that we can understand how to be successful and sustainable. And I think that what you have been working these 20, 25 years, almost 30 years, right, Dana, is something that can right now be completely seen because it's like the COVID it's catalyzing, is a catalyzer of the events that will come to this new way of working, no?
Yes. I think I should say, so that people understand where these 12 principles come from, just so they know I didn't snatch them out of the air or out of my imagination. Complexity science teaches us, which is living quantum science, complexity science talks about complex adaptive systems and says that all living organisms, from a bacterium to our cells, are complex adaptive systems. And the whole of complexity science or living quantum science is about why such systems are sustainable and evolutionary. So they stay in business, keep the organism going, but at the same time, the organism grows and evolves. And I've been arguing in my most recent work that companies must become complex adaptive systems. So the 12 principles of quantum leadership that we're going to talk about are the principles that a leader would follow to operate his or her company as a complex adaptive system, as a living quantum system. Each of the 12 principles that we talk about now is a conscious equivalent of one of the 12 defining principles of complex adaptive systems in nature. So they offer us a truly scientific way to organize and lead a company, such that if we follow these principles, we'll be leading our company according to the laws of the universe, the laws of nature, what the Chinese call the Tao. So it is literally the natural scientific way to structure and lead a company.
And then would it be right to say that as an organization being a living system, so all of the little parts that bring the organization to be alive, they are living systems. So if we as individuals follow these 12 principles and we think that we as an individual and a living system, if I am able to develop myself in these 12 principles, I will be more skilled, let's put this way, because I believe that this is something that you can develop. You are not born being a leader, you can develop it. You need to dedicate. If you are able to do this, you can do this to other people and then create other leaders, and you can create also an environment where people can work in these 12 principles, making the whole environment around, because of the entanglement that it will create and the right energy. These principles will make the whole system better place to develop leaders, and also an environment to understand the holistic impact that it will have. Is it correct to tell this?
Yes, exactly. If you use these principles of the complex adaptive system to design your company, you are making a company that is enabling everyone in the company to become a leader.
Mm.
Because these systems are self-organizing, and the quantum organization is self-organizing. We get rid of this top-down control, the pyramid of hierarchy, and everyone in the company becomes a self-motivated, self-actualizing leader.
Mm. And what I see also, that there is one important point, is that these complex adaptive systems, when they are self-organized and you leave them to organize themselves, and they are following these principles, for example, having value and vision led, and having compassion, etc. If they are working like this is perfectly aligned. But in case there is any attempt of control, you will unbalance the system, and then might be that some negative motivation can come, and then you have to come back, step back, and then start again to find this harmony. Is it correct?
Yes, the scientific word is coherence. If these principles are being followed and your body is following them naturally, if you follow these principles now with your conscious mind and your leadership, you are making the whole system behave coherently or harmoniously. If you impose control from the outside or from the top down, the elements of the system become alienated from each other. The harmony is broken, and the system stops being sustainable and creative. And that's why most Fortune 500 companies are out of business in 5 years. They work for a short period, but they're not sustainable. The idea of the quantum organization, it would be a company like I've described higher in China, that just goes on and on and on, constantly recreating itself while sustaining itself.
And this is a kind of evolutionary journey that even if they had a kind of purpose, they have a kind of first strategy, first products and services. As the dynamic is evolving, all of this is going to evolve also. In case they want to limit it, then is when the sustainability is broken, correct?
If they try to limit it or if they try to control it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the system has its own inner logic.
Mm.
It has a mind of its own, if you like. It knows what it's doing. So if you just let the system run itself, you will get sustainability combined with evolutionary growth.
And what I have observed in some experience that I had myself is when you unleash this potential, the growth that we have is exponential from the people, because the innovation, the creativity, there is no limit, because they are able to interact among themselves in a way that they believe in each other, and they take the best of each other. And because there is this alignment in purpose, in intention, in motivation, it is much easier for them when they are making these kind of experiments, trial and errors, because they know where they have to go. They don't know where they will arrive, but they know what exactly is the intention of the company, the strategy, how it's being developed according to the motivations that are beyond just the products and services. And then this creativity is unleashed. So the exponential growth that can come is very different from the incremental growth that you have in a very successful organization, but that is commanded and controlled. The ones that are self-organized and you unleash this power, the growth is exponential, right?
Yes, this is what is happening with hire in China. I mean, they're just growing in every direction exponentially. The micro enterprises, into the self-organizing micro enterprises into which they've broken the company up, just keep spawning children and grandchildren and great grandchildren. And in our bodies, in any self-organizing complex adaptive system, every subsystem is supporting every other subsystem. So in your body, your heart system is being supported by your kidney system and your lung system and so on. And this can happen in a company, so that without anybody gluing them together artificially, the component elements, while each is self-organizing and directing itself, is cooperating with and supporting all the other elements. The whole thing is holistic.
And I think that that's why, and I think that we mentioned it in the last conversation that we had in the previous series. We were talking about the importance of the awareness of the context. That is one very important part of what you mentioned in your book about the quantum organization. If each individual understand in which context they are acting, they understand that their work might be, for example, just to pay the suppliers. But if they understand how much is to pay the suppliers, how much this is important, and in the chain of events, how much this impacts in the end customer, in the society that this end customer is. If the person understands this, this person can do their job, they can do their job much better than if they are just paying the suppliers. Is the difference of one person knowing the purpose of their company and how much they contribute to the company and the results of the company, rather than telling, this is my job, not my work, this is just my job and I am doing my job. If this is their work, then this coherence is there because they understand how much they contribute to the whole and they understand the whole, right?
Yes, but in a true quantum organization, it's even more radical, because there wouldn't be one department paying the suppliers. In the way Hire has developed its organization, every micro enterprise is dealing with its own customers, its own suppliers, its own deliveries, its own service. So there'll be one member of the team in each micro enterprise. Everybody doesn't use the same supplier at Hire. This is one reason they thrived and made a profit during the COVID crisis, when most companies were failing because their supply chains were interrupted. Hire had zillions of supply chains. And because each micro enterprise cooperated, if one supply chain was cut off by the COVID epidemic, others would have their supply chain intact and they could share. So the idea of a quantum organization is you just get rid of these silos altogether. Let every aspect be self-organizing.
This is very interesting. And I think that this is somehow how the world is going. If we think in all of these platform way of working, more or less this is coming to be all self-organized. And in this way, the sustainability will be there because the disruption is less probable in times of crisis, right?
Well, that's certainly what happened to Hire in the COVID crisis and to all of its subsidiaries around the world. Hire Europe thrived when most European retail and manufacturing companies were suffering greatly. GE Electronics in America, which is another Hire subsidiary, thrived because the reason companies suffered in the COVID crisis is that they tended to have one supply chain, and that was distant and got interrupted because transport and air traffic and everything was interrupted. Their delivery network was interrupted, but the Hire systems all had many delivery networks, many service networks, many supply chains. So it was resilient against the breakdown that caused most other companies to suffer.
Yes. Dana, let us try to put this in the context of the 12 principles. So I will just tell the 12 principles, and then we will go 3 and 3 and 3. We will make blocks, and we will start discussing this. Okay, so yes?
I just had a thought off the top of my head that might interest our viewers. Because the body operates according to these 12 principles, if we consciously practice these 12 principles, we're going to get that much longed for union of mind and body. Our minds and the way we lead our companies, the way we live our lives, will be aligned with the biological system that is the body. And that will bring about total whole person coherence.
I will just share something personal, Dana, that today morning I was talking to some people that I was supporting, and they asked why I believe so much in the quantum principles, the quantum management. And I was telling that since long time ago, I have been trying to work finding this balance, this coherence between my private and personal life. Also, when I was working, when I started being a senior executive, I wanted to deliver the results of the company, to have the profitability, just to say the sales and everything. But I felt responsible by the people. I thought that it was very important that people would be taken care, and that they would feel that they are taken care, and that they would go beyond than just doing their jobs, but having a work that they believe that is worth. And in this journey, for me, it was very important to understand from me what is my reality. I had to be true to myself. And when I read the SQ, your book, and the 12 principles of spiritual quotient, which now we see that is the quantum leader quotient, these 12 principles have guided me for a long time ago. I always come back to them, and whenever things go into the right direction, I know, for example, in a challenging moment, that I am using positive use of diversity. I am celebrating diversity. I am having compassion. And when I started to dig into the principles and learn them more and more and try to develop it in me, it was very good. But when I started to try to share this with all my leadership team, other people, it started to be so powerful. And that's why I think that it's so important for us to share with everybody these 12 principles. I will just read the 12 principles so everybody knows what are the 12 principles that we are going to talk during this conversation. So we will start talking about the self-awareness, spontaneity, vision, being vision and value led. Then we will talk about holism, compassion, celebration of diversity. After, we will talk about field independence, asking fundamental why questions, and ability to reframe. And the last talk will be about positive use of adversity, humility, and sense of vocation. Yeah, we will talk about them. So if we can start by talking about self-awareness, spontaneity, and being vision and value led, how you would tell that these three principles are important for a leader to have it, and then also for a corporation to have it, an organization to have it?
Well, self-awareness, I want to emphasize, particularly for our Western listeners, is not self-obsession. It doesn't mean I'm focusing on me, and my ego self and all that's wonderful about me. Self-awareness, rather, is knowing what I'm good at, what I'm bad at, what my motivations are in each situation that I'm living, knowing my emotions, knowing what triggers me to become angry, and thus learning to control that anger. Learning what makes me upset and why it makes me upset. And then again, I gain a kind of self-mastery because I can be in control of the events rather than the events controlling me. It means being rigorously honest with myself. It takes courage to become self-aware because there are a lot of things about ourselves we don't like. So we try to deny they don't exist. We practice what Freud called repression. Self-awareness is unpacking all that. It's really rigorously looking in a mirror that shows me who I am, what I am, and why I am here. What is this life of mine about? That's very important. Every one of us, I believe, has a reason for being here and a unique contribution to make in this world. I don't think there are any unimportant people or any spare people. Every one of us has something that only he or she can contribute. And finding that purpose to one's life, that meaning to one's life, is the deepest treasure of self-awareness, because then it focuses everything.
And I believe that the self-awareness right now is something that is so important. And the leaders have been told right now during this last period that they have to show vulnerability, they have to show their authenticity. And I would not be making a mistake if I would tell that the leaders that have really showed great deal of impact during COVID were the ones that they were very clear and they knew what are their flaws and what were their strengths. And the self-awareness was so strong that they were able to be authentic and to be vulnerable. I think that this journey of self-awareness comes before you being able to be authentic, you being able to be vulnerable, because most probably having the self-awareness will allow you to be vulnerable because you know what you are not, and you do not have a problem to show it. And in some other aspects that people in other, let's say, theories or practices, they talk a lot in the teal organization about the wholeness, that all individuals in a teal organization, they have three principles: that is wholeness, self-organization, and purpose, evolutionary purpose. But the wholeness is the one that is more difficult for everybody to understand and bring. And it starts by self-awareness. You can only, and I repeat this because I think that is so important, Dana. We as leaders, when we are asked to be vulnerable and authentic, we cannot be if we are not self-aware. Self-awareness is the first step for us to be able to know who we are, what we stand for, so we can inspire and motivate others, right?
Yes, this word wholeness in terms of people means integrity. I am of a piece. I fit together. I'm coherent as a person. And that means I am authentic. I also wanted to say, as you were talking, that if I am authentic and I'm vulnerable, yes, I can show that vulnerability. I can allow myself to feel it. But I also, again, get a kind of self mastery or strength to hold my vulnerability. So I am not blown by events, blown by big disruptions. When I truly know myself, when I truly know who I am and what I'm here for and what I'm about, and I'm honest at what I am good at and what I am bad at, etc., I acquire a strength. So though I am vulnerable to events, I am not going to be broken by them.
Mm.
I want to say something else about this principle and all the other principles we're going to talk about. You can't just read about them in 5 minutes. Almost every one of these principles is a lifelong practice.
Yes.
Particularly self-awareness. Personally, every night before I go to bed, I sit for 1 hour and I go through my day with a kind of reflection. What upset me today, or what made me happy today? Why did it upset me, or why did it make me happy? How did I respond? How did the way I responded affect other people? And so on and so on. And if you do that every day as a practice before you go to bed, first of all, you catch up on your day and you make your day holistic. But you learn something about yourself new every single day. The self is infinitely deep. You won't learn about yourself in 5 minutes or a weekend workshop or a 5-day workshop. This is a lifelong spiritual, if you like, practice.
I think that going deeper philosophically, we can never know what we are because each day we are transforming. We are getting older. We are learning new things. Some things that we learned in the past, they are not valid anymore. So what I would tell is that this lifelong learning about the self, it's almost that if you believe in something that you are and you stick to it and you like so much, you will not like who you will be in the future because you evolve, right? Each time you are evolving. So this practice and this exercise every day makes you be able to be knowing yourself each day more, how you are acting and reacting to the new things, and making yourself learn how to be balanced to whatever comes, because then it comes this next principle that is the spontaneity, that I think that fits completely there. Because the spontaneity is that it's not that you are spontaneous, that you can do whatever it is whenever it comes and be funny. Many people tell spontaneity is like being funny or whatever. I think that the spontaneity in the sense is that you are so much aware of what is going on and that things are evolving, that you are in the moment seeing what is happening and you are part of what is happening, and you let what is emerging come and you live and flow with it. And the spontaneity is this flow that allows you to be in the moment and being part of the next moment that is being created, and you are able to impact on it while you are living, because you know that things will evolve. Am I right?
Yes, You were quite right at the beginning of what you said to make a distinction between being spontaneous and being impulsive. It doesn't mean I'll do whatever the hell I feel like now because this is my mood at the moment. It doesn't mean anything like that. In fact, spontaneity is incredibly disciplined. It is, as you said, the ability to be so internally poised that I can move easily with events as they unfold. Because I am, in a way, as you were saying, the things that surround me, the relationships that I have, the events that I experience. These are all who I am. I'm not some little kernel of an atom with hard boundaries that is rigidly defined. I'm changing all the time. And the world around me is changing all the time. And if you're the leader of a company, particularly now in these times of rapid change, accelerating change, and uncertainty, you can't make a 5-year plan. That's ridiculous. But it's even difficult to make a 6-month plan now. Who saw COVID coming? Nobody. But if you are poised to be spontaneous, if you can flow freely with events without losing yourself or losing your leadership or losing the direction of your company, then you respond just like that. For spontaneous, I'd like to give our listeners the image of a tightrope walker. Imagine yourself on that tightrope, the poise required to maintain that balance. A wind can blow. Someone can pull on your wire, and yet the tightrope walker walks each step gracefully. It's about internal poise, and that poise is a guide to help you flow with whatever is capturing you at the moment.
This is beautiful, Dana. I think that this ability, let's say, of being spontaneous comes so much together with the self-awareness, because it's very easy for us to tell we have to be spontaneous when everything is going okay. The difficulty is when you have challenges and you are in a position of leadership, or you are like, you have your family and have to take certain decisions, and challenges come that you do not have any answer. You don't have any answers and you have to take decisions. That is the moment the self-awareness is so important, because, and correct me if I am wrong, for you to be able to live this spontaneity and let things flow and let yourself be open to see what is emerging and see the positive in it and go with the flow, you need a lot to know your reactions and negative motivations. Because if you, in one moment you are a little with fear or anger or sadness, it might be that the next step, action, thought will drive you to defend something, avoid something, and then you are starting to control, because whenever you do not know what is happening, you tend to control. And that moment to have the spontaneity, controlling is not a spontaneity, is the opposite of a spontaneity. And most probably, if you are self-aware that you know that moment, there is something inside that is giving me this anxiety, and you just breathe and you tell, okay, let's see what is really coming, and let's see what I know and what I do not know, and let me grab on what I know and act on it, instead of reacting to what I do not know. This self-awareness, I tell this because this was something being in Venezuela 5 years, not knowing what to do, knowing that things would come in a direction that it might not be the planned one. I started to learn a lot this self-awareness, spontaneity. But I think that right now in COVID, this is the biggest challenge that all human beings are having. How can I deal with the moment, even if I do not know what will come, how I can act and not react? And the self-awareness and the spontaneity is very important there, no, Dana?
Yes, I was going to bring up COVID and how it bears on this, because so many people were thrown off their track by COVID. We all had plans, what we were going to do the next 4 or 5 months. And it interrupted everybody's plans. Now, for some people, this was catastrophic, and they were plunged into depression or they felt lost. They didn't know what to do. My plans have been destroyed. Others felt terror, fear, not of the virus, but of the unknown, and of the inability to make any plans for tomorrow. Fear is the biggest negative motivation that stops us being spontaneous, because we make plans to make ourselves feel safe. We've mapped out the journey ahead. We know where we're going. We know what we're going to do. Spontaneity is like taking a holiday where you leave your front door and you haven't any particular idea where you're going to sleep that night. You just drive till you feel like stopping. And then you adapt to whatever situation you find where you stop that night. Now, those of us who did well with the COVID crisis were able to do that. Okay, I can't go back to China. Okay, I'm not going to America in September. Okay, but what shall I do now then? And there are millions of things you can do. I've talked to many people whose lives have changed positively because of this crisis, just because their plans were interrupted. All the ideas they had of their career and how they were going to spend the next year or the next 10 years were blown up by this crisis. And they discovered, wow, without the shackles of all those plans, without the shackles of all those commitments, I'm free to choose who I am and what I'm going to do. So some people and some companies have thrived on this crisis. And they are the people and the companies that can go with the flow.
And Dana, I also noticed, I was talking to an organization that have 29,000 members. And within these members of business people, there were lots of companies that they knew what to do. It was so interesting that they were very clear on what is the business that they are in and what is the value that they bring to society. Right now, if we talked about the self-awareness, we talked about the spontaneity, and now the next one comes so good together with all of this, that is to be vision and value-led. Somehow, to be vision and value-led, I bring the purpose here. That is like, if you have a purpose in life, if you have a purpose in the business, then in the moment that you have a crisis, your vision might change, but your purpose and your values are so clear. And what I saw right now, we had some business that were called essential, that they were not closed, and other business that they were closed because they were not essential. But we could see some business that they were not classified as essential, that their value was so much missed, and they came as essential because it was a need to go there because of the way that they were built, because of the way that they used to operate. It was so clear in what business that they were, and their value add to society and communities was so clear that they remain open and they remain within their value chain, they remain alive. And
give our listeners an example.
So, for example, even if you're telling about hire, let's say hire.
Well, hire did this, yes.
Yes. And I think that hire is one that it was very clearly seen. And we see some, I don't know, Unilever, some other companies that they were able, that the way that they act and that they um, collaborate and interact with their stakeholders, it was normal to find a way because it was needed. And I think in our life, if you give always an example of people, the ones right now in COVID that were able to go further, as you told, is the people that they are living the moment. They, okay, they see, they act and they do not react to the problems. But more than this is that somehow they knew what they wanted from their lives. It's like, okay, this is a step that will be delayed. This is a step that will be changed. But let's park, acknowledge that there is a problem and not try to be finding solution for this problem that is a step. Let's step back and tell, okay, what is exactly that this situation will change or will impact where I want to go. I give the example of my life, Dana. I didn't know exactly what would be my next step of my career. But I knew that whatever I wanted to do, I wanted to contribute to leaders, organizations, to build their mindset to be much stronger. I didn't know if I wanted to do this in a corporation, if I wanted to do my own business. But in the COVID situation, it delayed many plans that I had changed completely. But I knew what I wanted to do. So I was able to be seeing what was emerging and be building my life in this direction. And I believe that many people, even not knowing exactly where you will land, you took the plane. And you believe that this is the plane that will take you someplace. And when you arrive there, let's see, and I will make the best out of it. And if not, I take another plane. Because I think that if you are able to understand that you keep your values, you keep your purpose, your vision, you will be able always in any situation just to stop, park everything and tell, okay, there is something wrong going on, but what I really want from my life, what my company is here for, how can I add value to community and society? When the company is relevant for society and communities, they can be sustainable. And I think that the next step right now after COVID is for all the companies to understand and find their relevance, meaning what is my value that I add to society and community, and how I make the world sustainable, and how can I be myself sustainable financially so I can continue to be relevant. Isn't it?
Yes. I think you got to go back one step before you're bringing value to society. Most companies don't even think about bringing value to their own people and bringing value to their customers. And that's more upfront and at home for a business leader to think about first, because if he thinks about value for his own people, am I giving them meaningful jobs? Am I letting them fulfill their potential? Am I letting them make decisions and discover their autonomy and use it? Am I bringing value to my customers? Am I giving them something that will make their lives better or easier or smoother or happier? Not how much money am I milking out of my customers? How high can I make my profit margin? But how much value can I bring? If you start thinking about that up close and personal about your own company, your own people and your own customers, it will then be natural to extend that to what value can I bring to society.
It is
You
true.
can't treat your own workers like robots or slaves who are paid a wage and then do good for society. Those workers are society. You have society in your company every day. So part of serving society is serving your own people. empowering them, enabling them, letting them fulfill their potential.
And I think that what you were talking about brings us to the next principle of the quantum leader quotient, the spiritual quotient, is the holism. The holism is such an important principle for everybody, Dana. And in the previous example that you were giving, that a leader has to understand that, or a company, they cannot just impact society positively if they do not think first on their employees and their co-workers and their customers. And I think that a leader that is able to be holistic on his or her view, on his or her action and decisions, is a leader that will have much more impactful decision making. Or this kind of leader is the leader that can inspire and motivate their co-workers to go beyond their day-to-day work. I don't think that it's possible that a leader that he or she wants to impact society or does do something good to society if he or she doesn't have this holistic approach and understand that first they have to make their organization understand that this is important. So he or she must bring holism to the organization, right?
Yes, but I want to tell people what this word holism means, because everybody's using holism these days. Holism is good.
Good.
Fragmentation is bad. Holism in quantum physics itself, in the universe, means that everything is entangled with everything else. You bring that home to us people, or to the leader of a company, or you and me as parents or friends in society. It's saying, I can't be good if you're not good. And I'm not talking about good behavior. I mean, all right. If you're not all right, I'm not all right. If you're not thriving, I'm not thriving, because I am you and you are me. That's what holism means. My employees are not somebody down there on the shop floor that I tell what to do. My employees are part of my being as a leader. They are my company, and therefore they are me. And if my employees are not well, I can't be well. My company can't be well. And the same with my customers. If I am not bringing value to my customers, I am not bringing value to myself. Hires management model Rendon Hoyi means this. The value to the employee is aligned with the value to the customer. If the customer is getting value, then I who provide him with the goods am getting value. And that's really what holism means. Nothing is separate. Nothing is other. Nothing is elsewhere. Everything has to do with me sitting here right now. It's all my business. And what I do impacts, influences, spreads vibes, if you like, into everything and everyone else. So if I come into my office in the morning in a bad mood, maybe I've had a row with my husband or my children have upset me, and I come in frowning and I'm in a bad mood, the whole office, everyone who encounters me, will feel bad. If I come in with a smile, feeling upbeat, people are going to say, oh, great, this is going to be a good day. It's catching. It means it's more contagious than COVID-19. Everything about me is contagious, and everything around me is contagious to me. That's what holism is. So you have to always see, I am in a context, I am in these relationships. My company is in these relationships. And that changes your attitude towards your competitors, because you begin to see that your competitors are also your partners. Yes, you'll compete. You'll each try to get your share of the market, but you'll find there are ways that don't interrupt that competitive stance, that you can support each other so that you get a win-win relationship, even with a competitor. And that's really what holism means in a nutshell. Go for win-win relationships. Go for win-win solutions. Because if you don't win, I don't win.
No, Dana, this is one of, for me, it's one of the most powerful and probably the least understood.
I'm sorry people who don't agree with smoking, but I must have a cigarette. Go ahead.
This is, for me, holism is one of the most important principles, but the least understood. Because many people have this view that to be holistic is for you to see everything as a whole. But they do not understand exactly what you told, that is entanglement. And that's why I loved your explanation, because absolutely everything that we do is energy and is relationships. The different relationships will create different energy. And I think that this comes also from the quantum dynamic system that Lara, before talking to you, I was a quantum dynamic system. That is completely different quantum dynamic system from the Lara that is right now interacting with you. Because interacting with you, I will be a different quantum dynamic system. And you also, and we create a new quantum dynamic system that is completely different from us separated, and is completely different from the sum of us before this. If we understand the power of this relationship, and that people understand the systemic thinking, and that absolutely everything that we do together can be much more powerful than the sum of the parts of what we are doing. And I think in this comes this so important role for us all to have a kind of common intention and understand each other, understand the view of each other, so you understand what are the intentions and motivations behind it. So for me, the holism, Dana, one very important part of being holistic, let's say for a leader to be holistic and to understand the dynamics of the energies and the differences, so he or she can get the best out of the system, it's very important. They talk a lot about diversity. They talk about inclusion, diversity, but I am very particularly against the way that the companies are talking about diversity, because only the way that they are talking already makes the diversity stronger. For me, I like to talk about diversity the way that is the principle of celebration of diversity. Each time that we understand that being holistic is that absolutely everything will impact in everything else, if you do not understand what is the other's intentions and motivations, and you already judge, there is 50% chance that it will be wrong, let's say. But if you ask people and you acknowledge that a different perspective of another person might enlarge your perspective and enlarge your knowledge of something, you will see completely different diversity, as diversity being a powerful tool for you to broaden your knowledge and perspective. That's why I love celebration of diversity.
It's stronger than that even for you. Again, because the entanglement of holism teaches me I am you, you are me. We live, as the title of my new book that I'm writing now says, in a world of zero distance. There's no distance between you and me. No matter how far away you appear, the other side of the universe is right here. There's no such thing as distance in the quantum universe. Now, because you are me and your perspective, which at first seems different from mine, I actually am a multitude of people, and so are you, and so is everyone. I'm not just me. There's no real me. I'm many people, many, many possible people. And every time I learn another's perspective, another's point of view, another's way of feeling in a situation, I discover in myself this new perspective, this new way of feeling, this new possibility. So, in celebrating diversity, I'm also celebrating infinite self creation because we are being recreated in every moment. The more so if those moments or those meetings or those relationships are challenging. Because if something seems challenging, it means I haven't been there before. I haven't got this all worked out. So when I meet another perspective, find another way that people think, other food that people eat, other ways that people decorate their homes, instead of seeing them as foreign and different and not me, I see them as new aspects of myself. I've been telling my leaders in my speeches, to be a quantum leader, you can't be a siloed human being. You can't only read business magazines. You have to read art. You have to listen to music. You have to read novels. You read history. You read politics. You don't go on holiday to the same place every year in, year out, because it's so comfortable. Go different places, because every different thing, every diverse thing is awakening in me another side of myself. And then if I do that in my private life, I bring all that to my leadership. I bring that to my company strategy. I've known leaders who got their ideas by going to an opera one night. A famous thing in banking in America. In America, they have these drive-through banks. I don't think anywhere else in the world has them, but in America, you can just drive up with your car and do your banking to a teller. The bank that first got that idea had gone to a McDonald's and got his hamburger from a window beside his car. And he thought, if I can buy a hamburger sitting in my car by paying a teller in a window, why can't I do my banking that way? Every new experience, every introduction to something diverse gives me a new idea.
It reminded me so much, and I told Dana, that you remind my mother so much. I'm remembering what my mother told. She used to work in a pathology department, of the medical university. And I remember that at that time, it was early 70s. And everybody was giving receipts in the kitchen. And she get very nervous because she told it's not precise. The spoon of one person can be a different spoon. And she started to bring backers from the laboratory to make measures of the spoons and then write down the measures on mls or grams, and she started to use the backers. So there were lots of backers from that she bought in these stores that you buy things from laboratories to measure the kitchen. And she had many things that she was doing for us in the laboratory of pathology. And she was always telling, as many things as we have, it will not distract you. It will make you even richer in each part of your life if you are more diverse. And this is, I think, that the base of celebration of diversity, no, Dana, that we are so open that we start to know more things and know more about different things, being diverse and not selective in everything that we are doing, correct?
I said to one of my nieces in America, just say yes to life.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like that. Say yes. Be ready to embrace anything.
And
because, as you just said, by embracing that something new, by saying yes to that something I haven't met before, I am awakening in myself another of my own potentialities.
It is true. And you know, when I think that in this context is always, it's nice to see it. And if you see about celebration of diversity in the context of a difficulty or something that there is somebody that is thinking differently or somebody that is suffering and we want to help them. So I think that in this direction, if we think also about the compassion, I'm trying to bring together now what we were talking about, holism, celebration of diversity, and to try to bring the compassion. When we were talking about the holism and that we are one with each other, and the leaders right now being faced with diverse situations and challenges. And there are lots of people telling leaders to be, to have empathy. And I heard something the day before yesterday, I think that it was an interview with Richard Matthew. And he was talking about the difference of empathy and compassion and lots of burnout of executives right now. The ones that we told also that are the ones with strong soft skills that are dealing well with the crisis and everything. Also, we see that the ones that have compassion and understand the difference from compassion and empathy are the ones who are striving the best and being able to be stronger and not be negatively impacted by what is happening. Correct me if I am wrong. There is a difference from compassion and empathy. That empathy is like you feel as the other person. The person is suffering, you suffer. The person is happy, you are happy. And then many people is telling you have to be, to have empathy with your people. I kind of disagree with it. I think that you have to have empathy, maybe, yeah, but you have to act with compassion. And compassion is that universal love that you love so much everything that but you are kind of neutral because you need to help if a person needs. You need to stay okay if the person is celebrating, meaning that if a person is suffering, you have to help the person to go out of the suffering and not suffer with them. If a person is doing something that is very good, okay, you celebrate with them and let them not be attached to this celebration and go further for the next step. So the compassion is this so universal love that you help people to find this balance that they can go on and not being attached neither to what is going wrong nor with what is going too good. Am I correct in this?
You just used the magic word, attach. If I empathize with you, I am attached to feeling what you feel. You look cold, so I start to feel cold. If I feel compassion, I can see that you look cold, and I have a natural wish to hand you a coat. I don't need to feel cold. I need to help. I need to be able to put myself in your place, not feel what you feel, but know that I too could be in that place. Oh, that's what it would feel. What would I like? I'd like a warm coat. So I give you a warm coat. And the important thing that goes with compassion, and this is really important for leaders, if I can imagine the situation you are in and feel what it is that got you there, I don't judge you. I understand. That doesn't mean I think it's all right what you've done, but I feel that what you've done is wrong, not that you are wrong. Mothers are always saying to their children, I'm angry with what you've done, but I'm not angry with you. If leaders could remember that, or we could all remember it with people who aren't our own children. All the things people do, first of all, every one of us is capable of them. If we exercise self-awareness honestly, we know we have a lot of very negative thoughts, negative fantasies, negative feelings, horrible things that we might have done. Most of us don't do them. But we have the fantasy, which means we have the possibility. Who am I to judge you? No matter what you have done. I can judge what you've done is wrong. So I can say to an employee, that decision you made today has caused a lot of trouble. It's really messed things up. But I don't say to the employee, you have caused a lot of trouble. You have messed things up. He doesn't learn from that. It humiliates him or crushes him or puts him into fear. If you say what you did today was the wrong thing, you leave open the door that you're going to help him understand what is the right thing the next thing he does. This getting rid of judgment would get rid of so much of the troubles of this world. Between us as people, between nations, between companies, we rush to judgment.
You know,
compassion says, let me understand why you have done it, and let me help you not do it again. Or if it's someone suffering or cold, as I said, let me understand what you need to be warm. Let me understand what you need not to be hungry. And then I will give it to you. Because, as you used to say to your people at Roche, we act toward others with unconditional love.
I was going to mention this. I think the biggest learning and gift that the leadership team of Roche India gave me is this understanding of the unconditional positive regard. They kept the first thing when I arrived there, they were doing an exercise among them as leadership team to exercise unconditional positive regard. And when we were talking about many different things that we had not to judge others, we had to believe in human beings. We should believe in the human beings. And then they explained me this concept that was something that helped me so much, is that independent of whatever anybody is doing, it's not about what they are doing. It's not about the judgment of the intention that they have. We think that absolutely everybody wants to get things right. They want to meet the expectations. They want to be valued. So everybody will try to do something that is with good intention. Not necessarily the consequence will come as they thought. But then we are here to first believe that their intention was good. Let's see how can I help for you to come back to your intention, and then the action to go in the direction that will have the impact that you would like to have. And having this belief in human being, the team among themselves, to have this unconditional positive regard is, I think, that is the biggest demonstration of compassion that one can have, because you believe that the primary intention of people were positive. And with this, nobody judges each other and everybody feels safe that I can do whatever because I can stick with my beliefs, because everybody will respect and will understand that I have good intention.
There are times when people do things, like people who, for instance, take money from the company cash register. You can't say they did it with good intention, but you can, with compassion, understand why they did it. They didn't have enough. They were short of money. This was the only way to get it. Or they had some sort of pain, or maybe even some kind of mental instability. The point is that you look at the deed and you judge the deed, and you say you must not do that or must not do it that way. You don't judge the person. The unconditional regard, positive regard, is for the person, not for what they have done.
Exactly. And I think that this comes also in one thing that many people have difficulty, like when you have to lay off people. When you have to lay off people in some kind of restructure, it's already difficult. But normally we treat people very well in this moment because they are good co-workers, but they have to be laid off. But normally I think that the most important point that will show the organization which kind of company they work in is when they have to lay off a person that did something bad to the organization. If this compassion is there telling the decision that you took and the action they did had a consequence, that it might not be you, might be a decision of the moment, but your discernment at that moment brought you to a situation that I cannot allow you to stay, but I believe still in you, and you will have a chance in the next place that you will work to recover the trust and the discernment and understand the consequences of your action. But right now here, I cannot anymore. I think that if we are able, even in the worst situation, and this is the beautiful leadership and beautiful really companies and organizations, even in the moment that they would have the right to be bad and act in a hard way, if they are able to have compassion and do this to this employee, the sign that will be given to the whole organization is immense, is very good. So compassion is one of the principles, Dana, that I think that can transform an organization in an organization that can have really a positive impact outside. Because if this happens, is an example, is a role model for all the employees to have compassion outside, right?
Yes, I will even give you an example from my own childhood. I had a stepfather that I didn't like very much. And at one point, he was taking money from the company cash till so that he could go to the racetrack and gamble. So, of course, his boss fired him. But this was I don't know whether you call it felony or fraud, but it was a crime. And the boss could have called the police, and my stepfather would have been arrested and probably have gone to prison. But his boss said, I don't like what you've done, and you're not going to work for me anymore. But you have a family, and your children and your wife didn't steal money from the till. And if you go to prison, they will all suffer. So I'm not going to call the police, but I'm going to make sure you never have another job where you have access to money. Now that was an act of compassion, not toward my stepfather himself, but toward the realization that none of us is alone, none of us is disconnected, and this man he was going to punish had all these dependents, his family, who were going to suffer. So he fired him with compassion in that sense. And that's what I mean by this comes back to the holism, everything. When you are cross with someone and have to let them go or punish them or whatever, you have to realize that they're not an island unto themselves, and that what you do to them may influence a lot of other people who aren't implicated in that behavior.
Exactly.
And I think that's something, again, that is good for leaders to remember. And I might point out for judges to remember, because often the criminal justice system doesn't think of the wife and the children and how are they going to survive when the man is sent to prison. We don't think that people always exist in a context, always are part of a network of relationships. I'm going to put my supper in the oven. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's good. Going to the next principle, that is the field independence. I love this one because many people come to me and ask Dana how to use field independence and celebration of diversity. And I love this because when they understand really what is field independence, they do not need to ask about celebration of diversity, because celebration of diversity will increase their field independence, correct?
Yes. Because celebration of diversity stretches your imagination, opens up to you many other possibilities. And field independence means my ability to act against the crowd, my ability not to just follow along with everybody else. If I've had a diverse range of experiences or a diverse range of thoughts because of my reading, my education, whatever, I'm going to be closer to knowing who I am in this situation and what I think it's right to do. And I will be more willing to suffer the consequences of being unpopular, being excluded from the group, being criticized, than I would be if I only have this one group of friends, this one activity, this one way of doing whatever it is I do. Because then I think if I don't follow along with this, I lose everything. Who am I? But if I have developed many sides of myself, I know many ways to think. First of all, field independence requires critical thought. You have to stand back from the situation and say, is this the right thing to be doing? Is this really what a person with the values that I have should be doing? But if you don't have different perspectives, you don't develop that ability for critical thought. The more about life I am exposed to, the more different kinds of people I know, the more different experiences I have, the more I am able to look at things with different points of view, and thus in a given situation say, is this really the right thing to do, even though everybody's doing it? And I can say no. All of the principles are connected. There's no, often when I give lectures, people will say, well, what is the most important principle? It doesn't work like that. All the principles are entangled with each other. Being more self-aware makes you more field independent. Celebrating diversity makes you more self-aware, etc. But I think we should talk about humility with field independence.
Aha. Yeah, also.
Are you there?
Yes.
Because field independence can sound like do whatever the hell I want to do in this situation, promise. You know, never mind what everybody else is doing. I feel like doing this. Or I can be a fanatic, you know, a total ideologue who only knows one truth, and that is God's truth. And you have to follow it because it's my truth. That could be called field independence. It would be wrong. The savior from that is the other principle, humility, where I always say, I don't know everything. I have much to learn from others. I can be wrong. Am I a person who can say authentically, I am sorry, I made a mistake? So the two go together like the two sides of a coin. Being field independent is not a license to bully or be dogmatic. On the contrary, it's a lonely path that requires a great deal of courage. Because others look at you and say, oh, look at you, you're being different. Oh, look at you, you're not doing what we think is right. You have to have courage to be field independent, but you don't want to be dogmatic or fanatical or big ego. So always humility and field independence, I say, go together.
And I think also, if you are able to be very clear on your values and be very clear, for example, in the purpose of your life and why you are doing things, it's easier for you to have this balance between what are the things that I will have feel independence for. Meaning, there are some times that, like many people tell, it's better to be right or to keep a friendship. No? And I think that this is the difference also from being stubborn, having field independence, and this humility. And many people in an organization, in a corporation nowadays, Dana, when, for example, they have a different thought of their superiors, let's say, their leaders. If the leader is not open enough to hear, they will have to have field independence to tell their ideas. And this is something that right now is needed so much in the corporations, where people have very clear stance and they have the field independence to challenge their leaders. And then the leaders have to have humility and celebrate diversity to hear their co-workers. But the field independence is so important today, but also is what brings fear to the co-workers, because they are afraid that having a different opinion from their leaders, there might lose a space, place on the table. So this is something that is so important to have, but nowadays there is so much fear of having it that it's so important that the leaders develop the celebration of diversity and humility, so they can allow an environment where their co-workers can exercise their field independence.
I want to say something about values and field independence, which is quite subtle, but I think very important. You mentioned whether my values conflict with a friendship, so I have to choose my values or my friend. And in wartime, people sometimes in the past have had to choose my love for my country, but what I think is right, and they have to choose one or the other. I think the thing that is precious about being human, as opposed to a programmed machine, is that such things are not black and white. They're more subtle. And I have to have a kind of field independence from my own value system sometimes. I have to sometimes stand back and say, I have always believed the right thing to do is, and that's guided my life. But here is a situation where that doesn't feel right. Because there's nothing worse than a person who, in the name of some great value, a laudable value, a heroic value, nonetheless causes great pain or great hurt or great injury. In all of these things, be subtle. You can program a machine to make black and white decisions. And that's the advantage we have over machines and will always have. We can be subtle, we can be nuanced. And this comes back to spontaneity, in fact. Every situation is different. Every situation calls for a fresh judgment or approach in that situation, where you weigh up the whole context and all the implications. And don't just say, I believe and I have always believed and therefore. You understand?
Completely. And I think that there comes the why fundamental questions, this principle of being able to ask the why fundamental questions, because there are moments that our paradigms that we create in our mind must be questioned. And in that exercise that you were telling each night, when there is some situation that might be that I have to evaluate, I have done lots of these reflections that my values and the paradigms that I had were very much challenged. And I had moments that I told, who am I if I will not stick with my values? And it was, I think, that a period in Venezuela that I had to stop and tell what is right and wrong, what are my values, is it correct for me to do certain things or not? And then suddenly it comes this kind of insight that shows you that there is no right and wrong. What there is an impact and a consequence of actions that you will have. And if you are not flexible enough and you are not using spontaneity enough, you will not see the holism of the situation. You will not see how much entangled everything is. And if you stick with this paradigm, your assumption might be wrong. And given a certain circumstance, you have to think differently. And I give an example that it was very nice, that the paradigms, no? My husband and I, we used to go to a place that there were kids that they were there out of their families. And there is a phrase that they use to tell is that they have gone forever. And we were very struck us to see the children telling, oh, these friends, where is this person? Oh, this person, this boy, they went away forever. And they were very happy. And for us, went away forever. You will never see again this person. How can it be? It's sad, no? But for them, this meant that this boy or girl was adopted. So they would live forever. So go forever was something that it was very happy for them. And for us, it was not. So in this sense, what you believe and the things that you have in your mind, that automatically you react to it in a different context, has a completely different meaning. And if you
say this when we were talking about vision and value led, so I'm glad we're talking about it, because when I think, what are my values? They may not actually be the deep underlying value to which I give a name and an allegiance in this moment. It may be that my value is not, you must always be honest, but my value is mercy. So therefore, my friend who has stolen something or told a lie, I won't break with him or her because he has stolen or broken a lie and thus violated my value. Because I will learn that, in fact, underlying that assumed value I had held is a deeper value, mercy and forgiveness. So we mustn't define ourselves rigidly in terms of what we think our values are. They may be the way our values present themselves to us at this point of our life, but they may actually be transitory manifestations of a much deeper value that is more flexible and more nuanced. Because if my primary value in life is mercy rather than goodness, I can embrace a lot more behavior and feel a lot more forgiveness and compassion than if my value is goodness. So I wanted to say that right at the beginning when we were talking about values. We are infinitely capable of fooling ourselves into believing that we believe something. And that's a thing about self-awareness, and why if every day you make a practice of going through your day and questioning your own behavior, questioning your own decisions, questioning your own responses, you get more and more subtle, more and more nuanced.
And Dana, when you were talking about this understanding what are the values that are more important at that moment, if you think about goodness and if you think about mercy, isn't it very important at this moment you use the other principle, that is to reframe also, because you see what is the motivation that is bringing you to be maybe angry because of this goodness that I want to defend, and you think in something that is more in a different positive motivation, which is the mercy, that will by the end have an impact that is overall much more positive, and the consequence will be better for you, for others. So the reframing in this point is something that is very important, isn't it?
And again, and it goes with the deep questioning principle, the asking why. They go together very much. You can't have reframing without constantly questioning, how does this work? Could it work differently? Why does it work the way it does? That goes then with questioning my own assumptions and my own decisions and my own strategies. I make a strategy because I think that's the right way to go. But if I have this constant self-questioning, I will constantly say to myself, that seemed the right strategy, but would another strategy be better? Was it really the right strategy? This constant questioning of my own thoughts, my own beliefs, my own values. It doesn't mean that I end up a wishy-washy person with no beliefs or no values, which many people fear. And they say, oh, you ask so many questions, you don't know what you believe. No, what it does is make you more and more refined, more and more subtle. It makes the category by which you assess things broader. So mercy as a value can accept and feel compassion for a great many things that goodness as a value can't, and so on. I've been told, my mother used to say to me, Donna, you ask too many questions. You'll end up not knowing what you think. Well, on the contrary, my dear beloved mother, who's gone now, the more I question, the better I know what I think. It's just that I don't think what I thought before, because I've refined my thinking. And this is so important for leaders and for teams, because you have to make a plan even for the day. When I get out of bed in the morning, I do think, what am I going to do with today? But it's like COVID, only now it's on a daily basis. Something interrupts my plan. Someone I didn't expect phones and says, would you like to come over? Or would you like to do such and such? And my plans go out of the window. Well, that happens to us all the time as leaders. Things we didn't see change the situation. Scenarios are constantly mutating and changing and evolving. So there again, you see where spontaneity, to be spontaneous, requires an ability constantly to reframe. And when I question my values, when I question my strategies, I may in the end decide they were right. It doesn't mean I'm going to give them up, but I will hold them more preciously as a result of having questioned them. I should question everything. You, my boss, the Jews even question God. Who is God that he shouldn't be questioned? You know, everybody should be questioned. And that's so important for a leader to learn. Let yourself be questioned. To be questioned is not to be criticized. To be questioned is not to be undermined. To be questioned is a call to think again. Have I got it right? Or is there a different way? A quantum organization is a questioning organization so that it can be a spontaneous organization, so it can constantly reframe. So again, you see, these principles are all entangled.
It is marvelous. It's so nice to see how everything comes together. And I think that with this comes a very important principle. That is a principle right now that I am using hugely, Dana. That is the positive use of adversity. I think that the ones that are starting to be masters on positive use of adversity are being able to bring resilience, bring new ideas. And I believe truly that the people who are using positively the adversity of COVID, they are creating the future.
The very simplest way to put the positive use of adversity principle is every time something bad happens and you think, oh God, this has messed everything up. Just teach yourself automatically to say, what is the opportunity here? What is this making possible that I hadn't thought about, that I hadn't foreseen? Those are the people who've thrived on COVID. The people who in lockdown, who lost all their plans, maybe their jobs. Many people are going to suffer tremendous hardship, even if they didn't get the virus. But just to, instead of looking at it as, oh God, everything about my life has collapsed, just train yourself instead to say, where is the opportunity in this? And it can even be, I swear, because I've seen two friends die of ovarian cancer. One died badly and one died beautifully. The one who died badly couldn't accept that she was going to die. So she went on all sorts of crazy vegan diets and everything that she was promised would kill the cancer. She lived only 1 year, and it was a miserable year because she denied herself everything that made her life a joy. The other friend said, okay, I accept that, I'm going to die. But my God, what an opportunity to enjoy myself before I do. She lived 3 years with the same disease, and I think it's because she was so happy. She ate everything she wanted. She traveled everywhere she wanted. She did things she'd always dreamed of doing. She lived every second of that 3 years to the fullest.
Mm.
She died beautifully because when she was told she was going to die, she said, this is an opportunity to do what I've always wanted before it happens. Whereas the other friend, oh, no, 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 I'm not going to die, and deprived herself of everything. In every catastrophe, there is an opportunity.
When you're telling this, I am seeing many people that make this confusion about the positive use of adversity with the being happy the whole time. People telling, so that means that we cannot feel sad, we cannot feel the negative feelings. And I think that is the opposite. The question is not about having these feelings. These feelings will be there. You acknowledge them, but you decide not to live for them. If you see the two examples that you gave from your two friends, for sure the second one, the first one was very sad that she had ovarian cancer and she knew that she would die and she struggled with the thought of dying. But she decided not to live on this thought. She decided that having this news, I acknowledge it, but I will not fight against it. If this will happen, what I can do during this period to make this time much better for me and for the others around me. I think that the positive use of adversity is not about you being smiling and repressing your negative feelings, but is to acknowledge them and decide to live on what will bring a positive consequence for you and for the others around you. Right, Dana?
Yes. And I think this notion that we have to be happy all the time is one of the most pernicious notions ever concocted by mankind.
Yes.
Life isn't about being happy. It may be about making others happy if you can, but life is about fulfillment and meaning. And what is fulfilling and what is meaningful is not always what makes me happy. This is a total chimera people chase. And when there was this fad about the happiness movement and all these books about happiness, I was going crazy. I think this is all wrong. Life isn't about being happy. We are happy sometimes, great, wonderful. But that isn't what it's about. It's about making your life matter for yourself and for others. And sometimes that brings you happiness. And sometimes it requires sacrifice. Sometimes it means giving up my happiness, because then I get something deeper than this happiness. Anyway, you'll get me started on something which is another whole subject. Yes. The friend who lived fully her 3 years of dying wasn't happy, and yet she was full of experience, full of life. She had a kind of joy, if not happiness.
I think it's this positivity, right, Donna? I think that's why I like this term of positive use of adversity. It's not about the feeling or whatever. It's about the seeing the positive and acting positively about something, because means that the motivation that is driving you through this period is a positive motivation rather than fear, anger, or whatever. That's why I love positive use of adversity.
And many of the great business leaders who we look at as our business heroes got to where they are because something really bad happened to them. Jack Ma didn't get into Harvard. Would he be Jack Ma if he got accepted by Harvard? I think he was even turned down from joining the Chinese army. He was considered unfit. Well, what if Jack Ma had been an army officer instead of Jack Ma? I mean, sometimes the things that seem setbacks and failures are actually opportunities to go some other direction.
Yes, we see so many examples of those, and I think that this is exactly how we can see the positive use of adversity. See what is something that is going on, how much I can learn about it so I can go where I would like to go. What is my dream? No, and you focus. It's like I love this phrase that I repeat the whole time for everybody. That is the hero and the coward both have fears. The difference of them is that the hero takes his decisions, her decisions based on their dreams and not their fears. And I think that this is the positive use of adversity.
There's another famous thing about the hero and the coward. The hero dies once, the coward dies 1,000 times.
Uh-huh.
Because he's so afraid that everything is a living death.
It is true. It is true. Then the talk a little about the humility principle. You have already mentioned the humility before when you were talking about field independence. But if we take the humility itself, there is one thing in the Tao that I love that I think that can reflect a lot the humility. That part of the Tao that is telling that the leader has to be in a level where all of the others can reach, like the ocean is in the zero level, so all of the other rivers can flow into the ocean. They would not be able to flow into the ocean and grow the ocean if the ocean would be in a higher level. I love this example of the Tao because it's like the leader, as he or she evolves with the humility, more followers and inspiration he or she will have, and they will have more, let's say, power of admiration and commitment. So I love this example of the Tao about the ocean and the rivers, that you have to be in this kind of put yourself serving the others.
My door, I'm hot. Sorry. Yes, if I think I'm above everyone, I don't let their energy, their thoughts, their ideas, their contributions flow into me. We are all, as you said at the beginning of our conversation, energy systems. And if my own energy is so strong, it repels other energy. I become like a repulsive magnetic field, pushing things away. If, however, my energy is calmer, more receptive, things flow into me and I grow bigger as the ocean grows bigger with every river that flows into it. I, I, the moment I think I am more important, that I know more, but worst of all, that I know everything, as many leaders seem to think. Who are you to question me? I'm the boss. I'm the leader. I've got the answers. Well, if I've got all the answers, I'm never going to listen to you, am I? And I'm never going to learn anything from you. And just as I said at the beginning, every person has a unique purpose in this world. There are no unimportant people. There are no unnecessary people. It also follows there is not a single person who is not worth listening to, even if they sound mad, even if they are wrong. Because listening to a person who is wrong and thinking humbly about why you think they are wrong, you learn something.
It is true. There is a friend of mine who used to tell that every person that he meets, he looks at the person and asks this question: what is that I can learn from this person? It was beautiful because it was a beautiful learning for me that if the first thought that you have when you meet somebody, absolutely anybody, you look at a person and tell, what is that I can learn from this person? It doesn't matter who is, you will have a kind of curiosity towards the person instead of have a criticism.
I'm
So
glad you used the word curiosity with this humility because that is the essential coupling. If you are not humble, you have no room for curiosity. Because why should you be curious? You know everything.
yes, yes, it is true. Then can you talk about the sense of vocation? Sense of vocation for me goes a lot with this vision led, because it's so I think that the vision led is that you have this vision, you have this purpose, and you go there and you pursue something that you dream, that you have intrinsically your meaning. But the sense of vocation is like that call, that you are in a place, and this is so much, I might be wrong, but it is so much what would make such a difference in all of the organizations. If people feel the sense of vocation, that this is not a job, it's not just a job, I do not have just a position, I have a responsibility to contribute to the greater good that my company is doing. So a kind of what I see is that we need to start to feel that we have a work in this life. We come to this life because we do have a meaning, we do have a purpose, but everything that we are doing is a kind of work, and we have to find this coherence in the work that we are doing, which involves the work in the job that we are doing at home, in the society. But this call is something that would align all the parts of our lives and would make this entanglement more coherent. I believe that this call is what would drive a lot of the leaders and help the leaders to drive their co-workers. What is your view about it?
Exactly what you just said. Because the word, vocation itself comes from the Latin word vocare, which is to be called. And the first people who had vocations in Europe were the monks. They were called to serve God. And the Trappist monks had as their motto, laborare est orare. My work is my prayer.
Wow.
If my work is my prayer, my service to the divine, my service to the sacred, or my life is my prayer, my life is my service to the sacred, to the divine, then everything about my life or my work or my leadership becomes a spiritual act, an act of service. And this is the real call to vocation, the call to service. We can serve in so many ways, so it leaves a completely broad horizon for what we do with our lives. But if I say my purpose is to become a CEO someday, it's very limited and it's very finite and it's very siloed, and I might not achieve it. But if my purpose is to serve, then I might become a CEO and find my service that way. And if I am a CEO who leads to serve, then I am a servant leader. And I have always said the quantum leader is always a servant leader. But I love this laborare est orare. My work is my prayer, or my life is my prayer. It changes everything. It adds an element of grace to everything that I do. If I'm a wife or mother, it can be the way I put the meal on the table. But if I do it as my prayer, as my gift to my family, it will be a much nicer meal. I might think how it looks on the table. I might light a candle on the table. I will want to make it taste good for my family. If I'm a street sweeper, I can see it as my service that I am making the public space clean for people to enjoy. So I don't have to feel, oh, I'm just a street sweeper. No, I am a servant of the civic community. I am keeping your sidewalks clean for you. If I'm the toilet cleaner in the company, every employee goes into the toilet several times a day. If they are clean, if maybe there's a nice scent in the toilet, if the towels are there and clean and ready, it's nicer for everyone. So the lady who's only the toilet cleaner doesn't have to feel I have the dumbest job in the whole company, and people shouldn't look down on her or disregard her or make her invisible. Her job is important. She is serving every member of the company who comes into the toilet several times a day. And how much more if you are the CEO? You're serving your employees, you're serving your customers, you're serving all your stakeholders. You're thinking, what can my company do for future generations? You're serving life itself. My work is my prayer. My work is my service. That's the sense of vocation. And then you can have a sense of vocation about whatever it is your lot in life.
I always had in my mind this feeling of responsibility that whoever is working with me should understand the meaning of what they were doing, wherever they were doing. So when I made my town hall presentation in Rosh, India, when I arrived in 2017, I told many things. I presented myself. I presented the idea that I had about different things. And in a certain moment, I put the graphic of the Ikigai. And I told, for me, it's very important to work in a place that there is a reason for living. The reason for living being doing what we have passion for, doing what we do good, and if we are paid for it and this impacts positively the world, so what the world needs, we find a reason for living, for being. And this is a kind of call. And my call, I always felt that is lead people to deliver the results for the company have the results, but people feeling that they are impacting positively. And I was telling them, I have a contract of 4 years. And if I live 4 years and we increase the sales significantly, I will be very happy. But I will not be happy if I would not help some of you to find your own Ikigai. For some of you to wake up in the morning and understand the impact contribution that you were having for a much bigger result. A result that goes beyond just selling our drugs, but going to impact positively. So it's very important for me that you feel, you wake up in the morning with this sense of responsibility of working where you are. And I think, Dana, that one of the most important responsibilities of the leader is to bring this environment for their co-workers, their organization, where each one can find the meaning of their work. This is space for people to find the meaning of their work and their call. This can make the slight difference from an incremental organization and exponential organization, an organization where you unleash the true potential of each being and the one that they do what is asked to be done and they perform excellently.
And then and if you as the leader recognize that everyone's job has a meaning, however humble that job might be, you are then also giving that most humble employee as much sense of dignity and self-respect as you would your one of your leadership team. And that is something in a quantum company that I insist upon. Every member of the company is allowed to have a sense of dignity and self-respect because he or she understands that no matter how seemingly humble their job, it's necessary. It's a part of what makes the company function. And if they didn't do their job well, everything would be less good.
It is true.
I know that it wrote because I asked you. I have this thing about ladies who clean toilets because I notice so many people just ignore them when they go into the restroom. They don't see these people. And I said to you, do you invite your toilet cleaner to the company party? And you said yes, always. But you know, I'll bet a lot of companies don't. That was exceptional. But you made that lady feel a part of everything everybody else in the office was doing. And she too could come to the party and dance and eat chapatis and so on.
You know, Dana, you are telling this gives me nostalgia because in my farewell party there in India, a moment that it was very emotional for me was the moment that the ladies that I love, the lady that she was always angry with me because I used to wipe my basin after I finish it because I always leave it clean. And she was very angry. She was telling, no, please, this is my work. And I told, no, my mother taught me to leave it better than before. And after a while, she looked at me and was just smiling and she knew that I would do this. And I told you, I have to leave this okay for you. And the day that I left in my farewell party, I remember that there was this group of and Deepak, some of them who also served the teas. I love them. They were so much devoted to everything that they are doing. And when they came and we took a picture together, I remember that this picture, after they gave me in a little book that they had pictures of many people. And that picture, it was so meaningful because, you know, Dana, for me, they are the ones who truly make our life super easy, because you don't know how worth they are until one day that one of them will not be there, they are absent for something and we cannot find substitute, and you end up the day with a very complicated mess in the toilet, let's say.
Or the tea wallet doesn't bring you your afternoon snack.
Yeah, and that's why I don't, for me, since I was very young, I never saw difference. I saw just different pieces of a Swiss watch. Everybody, if you have one little piece that is out, it's not going to work. So I remember, and I give another example that is the last one about it, that in Venezuela, when we worked, we had the annual meeting, and always, because this was the strategy, and we wanted everybody to be there, so everybody understood the strategy. So when they are doing their job, they would see how they could contribute to the whole context. And there was this lady, this gentleman, there was Mr. Antonio. He used to deliver all of the important documents in the regulatory authority, no? And he was the one that, when we finish absolutely everything, the whole meeting, we asked, what do you see? How you can contribute? Do you think that it was important to bring everybody to this meeting so you know what is your contribution? How you see it? And he was the one who raised the hand, and everybody was very surprised, and he gave this example. He told, now I understand what you always told. Now I understand that I have a role in the whole picture. It's like a Swiss watch. I might be a very tiny piece of the Swiss watch that I am not seeing how important I am, because I am a small piece. But if this piece is not there, the watch will not work. So I understand the importance of me being part of this company. I am this piece of Swiss watch. And this person, Dana, 3 months after, he came back to my office with a newspaper. He was telling, look, I was delivering something in the regulatory authority, and there they were talking about a new regulation that appeared, and nobody's using it because probably nobody understood it. And they were talking about this newspaper that was talking about it, and that probably people would start to be aware of it, but it was a very small piece. Then he bought the newspaper and brought to me and told, I don't know if this would be useful or not, but they were talking about it. And one of our strategy is to accelerate the approval of our medicines. And this regulation helps with it. So I probably you already have, but I brought to you. Dana, this has accelerated 2 drugs for cancer because he understood his role. And he did it. So I want to close this with the sense of vocation that we can bring to everybody. He had this sense of vocation and he felt responsibility for his work. And he made a huge difference. Mr. Antonio was able to do it.
As a leader, and I want to come back to this because I have met so many arrogant company leaders, and they give little thought to these lowly employees. You did that for your employees, and it was one of the things I admired about your leadership. And I appeal to any leader who may be watching these videos. Recognize the dignity and the importance, the crucial importance of every one of your employees, and let them know you recognize it. Make them feel part of the team. Make them feel a valued member of the team. Nobody is a little person. Nobody is an unimportant person. And
Everybody have a huge
it's
impact.
always the possibility that, like that man with the regulations, they notice something that you would never come across. And if they know you are open to their contribution, they will bring it to you. I often think of the ladies who clean hotel rooms. They're treated like dirt so often by the hotel administration. They're just they just show no respect at all. Talk too rudely, not made to feel important. Who are you? You're the lady that cleans the rooms. That lady who cleans your room is the closest person to you when you're a hotel guest. That lady who cleans your room is more important to you than the manager of the hotel, who you'll never see. That lady or man, it is often a man, makes your stay pleasant or unpleasant. And if they like you because you've shown them a little courtesy when they come into your room, I find they bring me a flower, or they bring me an extra chocolate, or they bring me extra little portions of coffee. They're so grateful to be recognized. And this is a big thing with me, the way these so-called little people are looked down upon in companies or in societies. There are no little people.
It is true, Dana. So I hope that this was a very nice conversation. We could cover all of the 12 principles and talk a little more. So we will continue this probably the next time. So we will have the next conversation, and then we will follow with all of the thoughts that we have, and we will see what are the things that are emerging so we can talk about the next time, right? Thank you so much, Dana.
I hope the people watching these videos will come back to us with their observations and their feedback, because obviously, in tune with what I just said, it is not you and I who are important. It is those who are watching who are important. What are they making of what we say? What questions do they have? What do they think we should be addressing? So please give us feedback.
I will ask everybody to just write to us. There is also the email that is the Guru and the CPO at gmail.com. You can write there and ask us whatever you want. Make your observations. If there is anything that you disagree, everything that you want to add, just send us, because it would be great to discuss this further, right?
Exactly. What is a performer without an audience?
Exactly. So let me stop